All right, thanks for the intro. I'm Preston Loon, one of the founding members of Prysmatic Labs. We're focused on building scaling infrastructure for Ethereum, primarily in Ethereum 2. So I'm, one of the few people on the bleeding edge of Eth2. We're implementing it as soon as it can be implemented. So I'm really happy to talk to you guys about what is Eth2 briefly, and then what has changed in the last few months since launching the mainnet for the Beacon chain. So briefly, what is Eth2? From Vitalik, who is the creator of Ethereum, he says it's a multi-year upgrade, basically to massively increase the scalability with sharding, switch to proof of stake to increase security, and improve the programmability of a few aspects of the blockchain. In short, to summarize, we're taking Ethereum as it is today and really rewriting a huge part of how it works on the protocol layer and trying to make it scale for the future. So some of the features of Ethereum 2 are that we have transaction scalability. So instead of the current model in place, which gives us about 14 to 20 transactions per second, we're hoping to get to something on the order of 100,000 transactions per second, both through some of the scalability that Ethereum 2 unlocks on the primary layer, but also through scalability through layer 2, which we'll talk about briefly here, and then the next talk we'll talk about in depth. We have increased security with proof of stake, and this is more environmentally sustainable. Today is Earth Day, and talking about how switching to proof of stake can eliminate a lot of the energy expenses that come with proof of work, which is the model to secure Ethereum and many other blockchains. So here is the rough schedule of upgrades. And if you're familiar with Eth2, it's changed a little bit. We used to have phase 0 through 2, so 0, 1, and 2. And since then, we've kind of pivoted to no more, we're not really calling it phases anymore. Here are just the things we're doing. So the first thing we did was launch the Beacon chain. I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. We're going to then merge ETH1 as it is today, the Ethereum blockchain we're using today, merge that with ETH2. So switching over the consensus layer or security mechanism from proof of work to proof of stake, having the Beacon chain finalize everything, and then introducing the shard chains. So bringing in this ability to have parallel Ethereum blockchains be connected to each other and really bring some horizontal scaling to the Ethereum platform. All right, so let's talk about the Beacon chain just a little bit. The Beacon chain is what's launched already. It launched in December of 2020. It's responsible for 4 primary things, right? It's responsible for managing the validator registry. Joining the registry is a one-way burn. You have to put in 32 ETH to become a validator. That's the current parameter. If your balance drops below 18 ETH, you're kicked out. So if you're offline for, I don't know, 5 years or something, you might get to this level and you're kicked out. If you don't want to participate anymore, you can voluntarily exit. It's not all about forced ejections. And then at some point there will be transfers. They're not part of the Beacon chain yet, but in a future upgrade, they will be. The Beacon chain is also responsible for managing balances, primarily rewards and penalties. Every 32 blocks is an epoch, and every epoch we recalculate who was participating in the last few epochs and who wasn't, and then from there we calculate rewards for completing your work on time, and then penalties for doing nothing when you're supposed to be doing something. This also deals with the shuffling aspect of Ethereum 2. Having unpredictable randomness is something that's crucial to the security of ETH2. So that's a big responsibility of Beacon chain. And the most important part is the finalization aspect of proof of stake. Through the Casper FFG model or mechanism or algorithm, however you want to call it, we're able to finalize the blockchain so that there is no way that they can be reverted or changed in any way. There's been enough votes at stake that this is considered final. Everyone agrees it's final. It can never be changed. And that's a different model from proof of work, which is really finalized loosely by the difficulty that it would cost to produce a reorg or to do a 51% attack, where proof of stake, it's not possible to do a 51% attack like it is in proof of work. So the progress so far, there's over 121,000 active validators. We started with, I think, 16,834. So it's just been growing as fast as it can grow, pretty much. 3.8 million Ether at stake. I don't know what that is off the top of my head. I think Ethereum's at all-time high today, so it's changed. Last time I checked, it was a value of around $8 billion. Which is pretty amazing. There are 4 production clients in use today validating Eth2. This is great for redundancy of Ethereum. If there's ever an issue with one particular client, everyone can switch to one of the many other options. There have been 1 million blocks produced so far in the Beacon chain, and 135 validators have been slashed. Slashing is something different from being inactive. It's where you either intentionally or unintentionally produce conflicting information which could confuse the system and is penalized for doing that. So all of this is an indicator that it's been a massive success so far. We see over 98% participation, which is amazing with that many actors in the system. Okay, so moving on to Eth2 merge, and this nice little graphic here from ethmerge.com, it kind of illustrates what we're trying to do. We have these 2 independent things running in parallel, right? We have the proof of work of Ethereum running at the top, and then the proof of stake beacon chain layer running at the bottom. We're gonna merge those into be one thing, where it would get rid of the need for proof of work. You can see it stops there in the graphic. So what this does essentially is that we are going to use the beacon chain's finality to then finalize the data of Ethereum 1, producing blocks and doing state execution and all the things that we know today that come from miners and nodes on the network will be finalized through the beacon chain. This means we're 100% proof of stake when it comes to the protocol layer of Ethereum. Ethereum 1 and 2 become just Ethereum. We can stop saying Ethereum 1 and 2. It'll just be Ethereum again, and that will be awesome. There will be significantly reduced network issuance. I'll show you a graph of that in a moment. The spec for this, the specification for this upgrade is pretty much complete as far as I know. We're starting to build that out now. This used to be called phase 1.5. It was a phase in between 1 and 2 that was added later, and now we're not calling phases. So it used to be 1.5 if you're familiar. This is kind of a history of the issuance and a prediction of the issuance to come in terms of how much Ethereum is being created, or Ether is being created in the universe. So you can see this huge drop off where it says Eth2 phase 1.5. Remember, it's not 1.5 anymore, but the issuance that's going to proof of work miners will basically drop off, and we go from a 3.5% issuance to next to nothing. So that's going to be really exciting for the circulating supply of Ethereum. Current effort for the merge, we have a hackathon that's lasting over a month. This is to develop prototypes for the merge. We have several clients who are working on this: the Go Ethereum, Teku, Lighthouse, and Prism. All of this, what comes out of the hackathon, is a public testnet and something that can be taken to production. You can learn more about the hackathon at scaling.ethglobal.co. Let's talk about shard chains. Sorry, I'm moving quickly. Eth2 is pretty big thing to talk about. Shard chains. So this is when we're bringing in the data layer here. So if you look on the image on the right, kind of gives you a picture of how these things are connected. In the center, we have the beacon chain, which is the backbone of the whole system, and then we have the data shards, which are then linked to the beacon chain. These things are run in parallel. Initially, there will be 64 producing data, and we'll be validating that data through the beacon chain. These are linked in the beacon chain every once in a while. And this can help provide scalability through layer 2. So with things like zero knowledge rollups and other mechanisms where you can commit a batch transaction receipt to the data layer will help significantly increase the throughput of Ethereum. This used to be called phase 1. Now it's just shard chains version 1 or shard chains part 1, I suppose. There's part 2, or version 2 to shard chains, which is making each shard chain be its own execution environment. So each shard would behave like its own little Ethereum world. Now with the layer 2 optimizations that we're considering or that have been developed, this may not even be necessary. It was always on the roadmap as phase 2, but is up for debate on should we do this or should we just leverage the ability of layer 2 scaling. There are a lot of people involved in building ETH2. This is an image from March of 2018, and this was one of the first gatherings of Ethereum 2 researchers and developers to start building ETH2. Since then, it's grown to, I don't know, hundreds of people. Probably couldn't all fit in this photo, but I really like to share this one because it was one of the first get-togethers that says, let's start building this, let's get it going. Let's upgrade Ethereum and make it something great. And then lastly, I'm going to plug my team, Prysmatic Labs. We are 8 people. We're an independent team just trying to build on Ethereum at the protocol layer and make it a thing for everybody. We've been community funded, grant funded, not for profit kind of style. We make our client available and free for everybody. You can find more about us on Twitter at PryLabs, and you can explore our code, pick it apart, check it out at github.com/prismaticlabs/prism. All right, thanks.